Coordinator for the County of Santa Cruz, and with me today I'm so fortunate that I have Dr. McCollum from McCollum Family Chiropractic with me today from Capitola, and welcome.
Hi, how are you? Nice to be
I'm
here.
very well, thank you so much.
There you are.
Yeah, and so I was thrilled to bring him with me today because he has an amazing story about how he became a chiropractor. I just think it is absolutely amazing, and when I heard it I was like, this is great. And so yes, he is my chiropractor and he's been helping me, and it's one of those things when you get older sometimes things don't work as well anymore, and so you've got to reach out and find a great person who's a fit for you, and he was the one for me. So when I heard his story, I wanted our audience to be able to hear it, because I just think it's amazing how we find life's passions and how we follow our journeys in life to get where we are today. So welcome, and thanks for being willing to share your story with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And you know, chiropractic is, everybody's got their story. It seems to me that every chiropractor I know got there because of a journey, and I'm no different. You know, I mean, I had a severe injury as a child, and I'm almost 63 years old. So when I was 10, that was back in 1960 something, and you know, it's what ended up happening. I lived over by the Cal campus in Berkeley, and we loved to go to the Cal football games. And one day we couldn't sneak in under the gate, because when you were kids locally, you snuck in under the gate. But there was a guard there that day, and he just wouldn't let us in. So there's a place called Tightwad Hill up on above the stadium where everybody goes, all the tightwads, and it's actually quite a tradition now there. But so I was up there with my two best friends, Billy and Andy, and they're twins, and it was raining actually, and they had a tube tent. Anybody that used a backpack in the old days know what tube tents are. They're just a plastic tunnel with a hole on each side. So Billy and Andy had both sides to look out of, and they wouldn't let me in their tent. That's what best friends do. They don't let you stay outside and get wet. So I decided to climb up a tree and get a better vision of the game. And I was about 20, 25 feet up on the tree, sitting on this branch, a pine tree, and then all of a sudden the branch broke, and I fell down, all the way down in a seated position, and the hill is very steep. So I fell and landed on in a seated position on a wet, muddy slope and slid down the hill. Well, Billy and Andy thought that was pretty funny, but when they realized how hurt I was, you know, I couldn't really get up, they still thought it was funny. But they ended up having to basically almost carry me home, you know, one on each side of me, and we lived about 10, 12 blocks from the stadium. So they took me home, and this is again 1965, and I think Cal won that day, so my parents were so excited they didn't pay much attention to the fact that I'd hurt, and those were the days of 3 martini lunches. But when you had a Saturday off, they'd go on and on. So my doctor lived up the street, and he was there, and he and Billy and Andy's dad was a doctor, and they just looked at me and said I had a sprained strain, and they kind of forgot about me. And throughout the years that followed, I was just given pain meds, you know, and kind of brushed off as having no problem. And you know, to me, one of the things that I love to treat today, I love to treat kids, because so many times parents will go, well, he's only 10, 12, 14 years old. How could he have a back problem? Well, quite honestly, it's really common with the gymnasts and you know, the skateboarding that goes on, and the football and all these kind of things. Kids get hurt. So anyway, as it turned out, I was not diagnosed with anything other than a sprained strain, but I had to continue to medicate myself. Now, another side of the story that makes it kind of interesting is when I was in first grade, I remember studying the alphabet and making a C backwards. And my teacher at the time saw that C backwards, and this is now 1962 maybe, or 61. She all of a sudden diagnosed me with dyslexia. So now, even today, I think if somebody would have just had me train on doing the C the correct way for a while, I probably would have got it. But I ended up having a lot of trouble with study. I got put into a lot of special ed classes, and I never really learned to read because I was in pain, on medication. It was much easier for me to go out and hang out with my friends and be outside than study a book when I had so much trouble doing it.
Absolutely, and I can imagine that that was just an immense challenge being a child and not reading, right?
Yeah.
So I have no idea how you got so far through your educational career with that challenge.
Well, you know, it's really interesting, and I see this in the young kids I treat. A lot of them have problems these days. You know, the amount of kids that are affected with reading and developmental issues is huge. But your other senses become really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a very good listener. So the way that I overcame not being able to read was I really could listen in class, and by, you know, hearing what they said, I was able to some degree to pass my classes, but, you know, barely.
Yeah, I can imagine that was just, you know, a huge stumbling block for you. And I know that in our conversations that learning to read came much later for you.
Yeah, I actually didn't really become a functional reader till I was about 28.
Wow, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
And you know what also gives people hope, that if they haven't been able to accomplish that yet, it's still out there. You can still do it, right? It's, you know.
Oh my gosh, I just want to say to anybody out there, I mean, it's a new year, it's a new day, and, you know, if you want something bad enough, you can get it. You just have to figure out who to hang out with, and, you know, what I did, I hung out with people a lot smarter than me, and they helped me along.
That's a good thing.
It was really good.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so as you kept on your journey after the injury, then over time, I would imagine that you still had pain growing up, right?
Yeah, I did, you know, and I didn't know that it was not okay to have pain because nobody ever told me. So I'd play sports, and I remember trying to do football as a kid, and doing the sit-ups, my back was so sore I had to quit the team. And, you know, back in those days, the coach looked at you and kind of went, well, that's the way it goes, you know. Nobody really took it seriously. And so all throughout high school, I struggled through school. And by the time I was 17, in my last year of school, they graduated me half a year early. And later on, my mother had been very sick and passed away that year. And years later, my father told me that the principal had called him in and said, you know, Mr. McCollum, we're just going to graduate your son because, you know, he's not learning anything in here. He can't learn, and you just need to go figure out how to help him somewhere else. So that's kind of mildly put. So I ended up moving to Santa Cruz, and about 18 years old, and I loved music, so I decided to go become a musician. I went to Cabrillo College, and funny thing, learning to read music was very difficult, but I had a really good ear, and I found that if I could hit the note a millisecond after the person next to me, I could memorize the music. And then once I memorized it, I could be in the choral, and I was up in the jazz singers and chamber singers there, which was a real win for me, because that's the one thing that I really excelled at that point in my life. And after the injury, you know, nothing seemed to ever go right for me, but that was something that really did.
Well, that's great. Music saves another soul, right?
Oh my gosh, I still love music today.
That's great.
So, but along that line, another injury occurred, and this is probably the turning point for me. Some of those musician friends of mine came up to me one day and said, hey Duncan, we got given a piano and you have a pickup truck. So can we borrow your pickup to go get the piano? And you know, I thought, hey, heck yes, if you buy the beer, we'll go get the piano. So, you know, they bought a case of Busch Bavarian Talls, which a lot of people out there may remember. And in those days, you drank the beer, then you went and got the piano, so that's what we did. So we were feeling a little loose when we got this piano out of this garage, and me not understanding the severity of my back pain, just pain all the time, I lifted up the back end, and the two other guys lifted the front. And on the way out of the garage, they said, okay, we've cleared the garage, stand up now, because we were crouched down. When I came up, because I couldn't look up, the thing was like a big upright grand piano. When I lifted it up, my end of the piano hit the garage door, and I just collapsed trying to not drop the piano. And that was it. I was flat on my back for 3 weeks at that point. I could not go to the bathroom. I couldn't move. I was devastated, really. I didn't think I'd ever walk again.
Oh boy, that just must have been awful. And to have all this happen when you're so young,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah. So what happened next?
Oh boy. Well, the two friends came to the rescue, and I really owe a lot to them. I wish I could remember who they were. I was in so much pain at the time, and just trying to medicate myself because I didn't know what to do. I was self-medicating. No doctor had ever really diagnosed me, and the painkillers that they give, they didn't seem to help, and so I started drinking and doing other things to try to self-medicate myself. But these two guys came out and they looked at me one day and they said, "Duncan, we're taking you to a chiropractor." And I said, "No, you're not. I'm not going to one of those guys." And because my family grew up around medical doctors, and in those days there was a stigma. And they said, "Well, you really don't have a choice, so you can't move." And they took a green couch out of my living room and put it in the back of my pickup truck, and then put me on the couch. I mean, this is how you do it when you're 20, right?
Right.
And they drove me downtown Santa Cruz, to a chiropractor named Dr. Anthony York. And this guy was amazing. I mean, I did not like him at first because I didn't like doctors, and they carried me in. And Dr. York kind of looked at me and asked what happened, and I told him the story about the piano. And he goes, "Well, we need to take some x-rays." And he wanted me to follow him into the x-ray room, and I go, I can't move, I can't walk. So he asked these two guys to hold me, and they carried me into the x-ray room, and they held me up as he took the x-rays, and then he disappeared into a dark room for what seemed like a half an hour to me, and I just heard, it was scary, I heard splashing and banging, and I just was imagining the worst. And he came out and he put my x-ray up on the wall. I remember this, it's clear today as it happened. And he pointed to the very bottom bone on my back and he said, "When did you break your back?"
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild. And I just sat there kind of dumbfounded, and he said, "You broke that bone a long time ago, what happened?" And it was what's called a compression fracture. It's like if you had silly putty and you stepped on it, it just squishes.
And that was because of falling in a sitting position, right?
Out of the tree.
Yeah.
And so it had never healed, it had never been diagnosed, and maybe thank God it hadn't, because who knows what, I might have had steel rods in my back or something at that point. So he said, "Okay, well, I don't know if I can help you or not. I'm going to go ahead and do an adjustment." And he put me down on the table, and I didn't know what to think. And all of a sudden he just jumped on my back, and there was a big loud explosion, and I jumped up and almost hit him.
And with that, we're going to come back with the rest of Dr. McCollum's story here in just a few moments, but it's time for us to take a break. Again, I'm Barbara Mason with Economic Development with the County of Santa Cruz, and you're listening to Think Local First Radio.
You need to turn these off or no? Yeah, he's Hey everybody, thank you. We're taking a short break, and really appreciate Barbara having me here. Barbara works for the County of Santa Cruz, right?
Yep, I sure do.
Why don't you explain to my audience what you do?
So I work in the County Administrator's Office in Economic Development. There's 3 of us in that division, and so I work with businesses. So when they're coming in to try and get permits from the planning department and they get stuck in the process, I'm the one who helps them get unstuck and find a pathway so that they can get building permits or land use permits so they can grow or establish a new business. So it keeps us very, very busy. And then I have other duties too. We kind of get the other duties as assigned. So I'm the one who issues film permits for the county. So that's a fun part of things that I do.
Oh, fun.
I also produce the Small Business Saturday event out of my office, and that's countywide, and the 82% Micro Business Summit.
Oh, okay.
So we have other hats that we use, for other events that we do.
And then, so the county's involved with Think Local First, obviously, and
Yes,
that's what
yeah.
this whole Think Local First thing is all about, right?
Yes.
It's finding out about how businesses start, to help assist businesses in growing, answer their questions, take some of the problem spots out of their way and stuff.
Absolutely, and then we're always working to help them as much as we can, and we know it's hard. It's not easy to be a small business owner. So,
Yeah.
but if we can plug them in and help them find financing, if they need a bank loan or help to write a business plan or whatever it is that they need assistance with, we're fairly well connected throughout the county, so that we can direct them to services if it's not something that we provide. But even manufacturers, we have groups that help our manufacturers. We have all different kinds of services that we offer that don't cost anything. They just have to ask.
That's awesome.
So we're getting ready to go
We're going back on.
Welcome back. You're listening to Think Local First Radio. I'm Barbara Mason with the Economic Development from the County of Santa Cruz. And with us today we have Dr. McCollum, and he is with McCollum Family Chiropractic in Capitola. So welcome back.
Thank you.
And we've been talking about his journey, about how he became a chiropractor. And we were just at the part when he had gotten carried in on a couch by his friends because he had an injury trying to lift a piano. So why don't you tell us, after you're in with this chiropractor for the first time ever being at a chiropractor, what the results were when they saw that x-ray.
Yeah, and it's how appropriate to stop right before I was going to hit the doctor too. So that's a little commercial break. We'll take a commercial break and be right back.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I realized that I had stood up, and I hadn't been able to stand on my own 2 feet for 3 weeks, and I was still in pain, but I was blown away. Number one, that this doctor had talked to me about my childhood. He'd gone back and asked me about this. He was able to spot on the x-ray where I'd broken my back, and that it had been, and he estimated it to be about 10 years earlier. So that changed my life, and I ended up going back to him a few times, for many years actually, but a few times till I actually got relatively out of pain for the first time in 10 years. And I got very interested in what he was doing. And, he would talk to me about the bones and the spine and the nervous system and how the organs worked. And I'd kind of go hang out over there and watch the patients come in and go out, and I'd see these miracles happen. And finally one day I told Dr. York, I said, Doc, I think I want to do what you do. And that's like, being a chiropractor now for 30 years, one of the greatest things that can happen is for one of your own patients to want to go into healthcare. And I've had several going to be chiropractors and health coaches and stuff, so that's cool. So at any rate, he said, okay, well, you got some work to do. And then I just kind of, he kind of talked to me about the curriculum of school, and the wind just went out of my sails. And I went, well, I can't read. And he, sat there for a while and said, what do you mean you can't read? And I explained to him that I couldn't read. I mean, it was this bad. Somebody would give me a comic strip with 4 little squares with maybe 5 words each, and they would go, hey, Duncan, you got to read this. It's really funny. And I'd be kind of looking and trying to make out the words in a certain way, and maybe I'm halfway through the 3rd frame, and they'd laugh like that was a joke, and I should have gotten to that point, and I would just laugh and give them the joke back, and most of the time I had no clue what it was about. So I went, okay, I'm going to try to go to school. So I'm older now. I'm more determined this is going to happen this time. So I went, and I remember I was in a chemistry class, and we were taking tests, and then the person next to you would grade your test. Well, I kind of liked this girl named Janie who was sitting next to me, and so I gave her my test, and the teacher started talking about how stupid we were. He said even one guy spelled acid, A-S-I-D, and I'm sitting here and I look at my test over next in Janie's hand, and I go, oh my God, this is the most embarrassing day of my life. So I dropped out of school at that point. And it took me probably 3 or 4 years to go back in.
Yeah, and you were you still at Cabrillo at this point?
I
Or?
was singing. I was doing music at Cabrillo, yeah, and I was working. You know, I was doing something that would be really silly to do, which was putting tires on cars with a broken back. I
Oh,
mean, you know,
no.
like I said, I wasn't that smart. I found that if I hang out with brighter people, I do better.
Yes,
you know?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Note to self, that's always a good thing,
Yeah,
no matter
absolutely.
what, right?
Yeah, and in fact, if you want to achieve something in your life, I mean, find people that are doing it, or find people that have achieved stuff, and go talk to them. I mean, if it wasn't for these people, I wouldn't have been able to step out and do what I'm liking to do. And I'll tell you, I love my profession. It's so fun to help people.
Absolutely. And I know you have a lot of them just because I see the people coming and going when I
Yeah.
visit you. So, and hear people like, wow, that was, because sometimes it makes a lot of noise and then, and then people are like, oh, I feel so much better, you know,
Yeah.
so it's great to see that. So now you have accomplished what you set out to do. You
Yeah.
learned to read, you became a chiropractor. And how long have you been in business now? Over 30 years?
I got my license on September, I think it was 29th, 1989, like, you know, 2 weeks before the earthquake.
Before the earthquake, yeah. Yeah.
So,
And you were here during
Yeah.
all of that? Oh,
Yeah, I
wow.
was here.
That's amazing.
and I remember Dr. Piazza at the time had a place in Aptos, and I knew him. And so he had put all his tables out on the front porch and were just offering free adjustments to the community. So I went and helped with that. And that was really neat to have just got my license, you know, and then just to have a community affair where we're there for charging nothing, just treating anybody and everybody that needed care. And that really was, I remember that so well. It was so neat to be able to do that and just help for help purposes.
Right, because it was the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and we were in a big emergency at the time. So,
Yeah.
And then, you know, what maybe a lot of people don't know about you is besides being a chiropractor, you're also an author.
I know, can you believe that?
I know. When do you have the time? I mean, you're always so busy, and you're here because you also have a radio program here at KSCO.
Yeah.
And that's how we met,
Mhm.
was here at the radio station. But tell me about how did you, so for the guy who couldn't read,
Mhm.
now you're writing books,
Yeah.
which to me is just amazing.
Oh man, it is to me too. You know, it's funny. My dad was an English professor for a while at Fresno State University. He was also offered the Rhodes Scholarship right before the World War II started, and he had to turn it down to go into the war. So he was brilliant. And to have a son that couldn't read didn't go over very well. He passed away many years ago. But I would just start when I was a kid, because I liked to listen, and I couldn't read. I hung out with all of my great aunts and uncles out down on a ranch in the Central Valley, and they were all born in the 1800s. And they would talk about Black Bart and Three Finger Jack and Joaquin Murrieta and, you know, the gold mining. One of my uncles, or one of my great grandfathers, was a gold miner, and he struck it rich in Hangtown, which is Placerville. Bought 20,000 acres in Soquel, lost it when it became a state. He lost it through some shenanigans. And the other one was the first Marshal of Salinas, and he came across in an ox cart. And so these stories have all been in my head. So I started telling stories to my kids at night. And my little son Angus would always say, "Daddy, read me another Little Big Jim," because that was the name of the character I made up. And of course, I always thought it was funny because I was telling him the story. I never had a book in my hand. And so I would just tell those stories. And then one day I was with my wife and my son, and they said, "Why don't you write that story? Why don't you write a book out of that?" And I said, "That sounds like fun." And it took me about another 2 or 3 years to do it, but I finally got the first book done and got it published in 2017.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And now you have 3 books out, right?
Yeah, I have another one called Coaling Station A, which is about Coalinga, and my grandfather, born in 1883, in the same line, was the editor of the Coalinga Record during the oil boom, and in 1915 and all those types, he wrote a poem called "The Row Laid Low," which was about Whiskey Row burning down, and of all of the, the roughnecks, they're called, the oil Roughnecks. It was pretty wild and woolly. So that's my second book, and then my third one is called Kaleidoscope, and it's about another one of the family. It's a World War I. He flew for France before America got into the war, and it's a pretty neat story. And then my fourth one will be out in February.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you're going to give us a little glimmer of what that one's about?
Yeah, it's actually the sequel to Little Big Jim, and they head off the coast of Monterey in 1863 to China, and to do some trading with some stuff they picked up in the first book. You have to read that first. And some of the characters, and it's called The Journey's End, which was the name of the boat that is in the first one, and it's a pretty. I think it's my best book yet, and we'll see. I've had a few people read it and they really like it, so
That's
I'm looking
great.
forward to getting it out.
See, so just amazing to find your passion in life, and now find a second passion in life, right?
Yeah.
So, and being able to accomplish these things, because so I'm hoping the audience understands why I just thought it was such amazing when I got to meet him. And you hear the story about not being able to read, and then later on becoming the chiropractor and having injuries as a child, and then going on to still have a very successful practice, and also becoming an author as well. And I know having a successful practice is a challenge in our area.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is, because it's expensive here to live. It's hard to find employees. I know I hear that from a lot of the businesses that I interview about the challenge for finding employees. And I know you recently had some turnover in your establishment. So how did everything go? Are you everything's good now? I mean, the gals who are up at the front are just lovely. They're so nice and patient with everyone. So
I think it's just really, for me, there's two things. You got to find somebody that really wants to help people, and then somebody that actually can handle the type of work it is. And I've had some really great employees. It wasn't really the right job for them. It's not that they couldn't go do something else well, but I need a team that's really dedicated. I mean, we're so passionate about helping people at my office, and if somebody just shows up to click the time clock, then the rest of the team, the rest of the team are also the ones that put the pressure on me or them and go, hey, look, if you're not going to pull your weight here, you got to go. And so that's what's neat, is I have an incredibly dedicated team right now.
yeah, it's very apparent when you go into the office, and talking with them, that they're very passionate about their jobs. And I think that through all of our working careers, those are the golden employees to try and find. I mean, I've had a lot of employees in my career, and it was always a thing I was looking for too, was someone who was passionate, no matter if they were working in a restaurant or working in medical field, whatever it is finding somebody who is passionate about their job.
Yeah, and here's just something that I've worked with a lot of practice managers, and I'll take my staff to these guys, and I've had several staff that's worked for me for over 10 years, well, 2 or 3 actually, and Arlene, who's worked for me for over 6 years now. And the thing is, it's like what she repeats is like, look, it's not how you do one thing, it's how you do everything. So for anybody out there who wants to know how to move forward in your own career, or decide to write a book, or decide to take on a school project, just know that everything you do matters. It all matters, and just do the best you can, and eventually it will pay off.
Absolutely. I had a manager one time tell me that you're not judged on the things you like to do or the things you do well. You're judged on the things that you don't like to do, and those are the things you need to concentrate on the most.
Yeah.
And I find that that's true, because in every job that I think we have, there's the things that you love to do, and then there's all the stuff that you still have to do that aren't your favorite things. But they're going to look at everything you do, the things you like, the things you don't like. So you have to pay attention to detail. And in your work, I imagine that's very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the business owner, but I'm usually the plumber, the electrician, the janitor, the guy who hauls the water up in front, because I won't let my staff do it, and so it's just something you have to be dedicated to, and it's work. When I talk to people about their health, which I'm going to do next hour, but I say, look, you know, if you, and I can vouch for this, if you want to start a career, that's going to be painful. There's going to be school that's painful, studying, cramming for exams, you know, figuring out how to survive on a student's wage, how to pay back your student loans. You know, if you're going to become a professional in any field, it takes work. And so don't be afraid of work. And I used to work at Sears Automotive here, and that's where I busted tires. And I had back pain the whole time. And I remember every year would go by, and I knew my date, 9 years. And I thought, I can't believe I'm still here. I don't like this job. I'd say it differently to myself. I remember 3 or 4 years going by, and I went, God, I just hate working here. Why am I doing this? And then I thought, you know, if I just go hate school for 5 years or 6 years, I could become a chiropractor. 2 more years went by. I said, I still hate this. I could probably go hate school. And I finally decided to go to school and just struggle on through. And I found some really good study partners, which helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's a huge leap of faith, but
Yeah.
you know, something that I'm sure you're so glad that you did now, because it changed your whole course of your life.
Yeah,
You know,
it
and
did.
yeah, absolutely. So I know we're going to talk about a couple different topics in our next segment, but I want people to know where you're located at. So why don't you talk about where the practice is?
Yeah, I'm right across from Macy's, right by the new Olive Garden, and next to Bed Bath & Beyond, in between Bed Bath Beyond and Rabobank and or FedEx, right in that parking lot. They're right next to the nail place.
So the Brown Ranch.
Brown Ranch
Yeah,
shopping
Claire's.
marketplace.
Yeah. I always call it the Trader Joe's strip center over there. That's
used to
where
be
he's
cows.
at. It used to be cows.
There used to be a cows there when I was busting tires at Sears.
And how long have you been there?
I've been at that place for 6 years now. I was on Seabright for about 20, and then Dr. York took me in when I graduated from chiropractic college. I was there for 3 years till he basically got kicked out, or it was too big, I had to go.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Change is good sometimes,
Yeah,
you know?
it's really good.
Yeah, got to shove the baby out of the nest, so to
Yeah.
speak. So we're getting ready to take a break here pretty soon. Just wanted to let people know the 82% Microbusiness Summit. We've been getting a lot of questions about when the date is this year for 2019. It will be May 3rd if you want to do a save the date on your calendar. Still during National Small Business Week and still at Cabrillo College. The Eventbrite will be going live here in the next couple of weeks so that you can get your tickets, and we're already lining up all the speakers. If you go to microbusinesssummit.com, there is a call for speakers there right now. So if you know someone who would like to speak at the event this year in front of 300 businesses, then there is the opportunity to make that happen. So again, that address is microbusinesssummit.com. Well, we'll be back here in just a moment. We're here with Dr. McCollum, and we'll see you in a moment.
I'll speak in front of that group.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know what you're looking for, but I'd be more happy to.
Yeah, we do tracks. Well, we don't promote it as tracks, but it's always thinking about that the audience is businesses that have 9 or less employees. So it's usually something that we want to give them that's tools of the trade,
I gotcha.
like how to walk out the door and how to have kind of ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of how to use tools so that they can, we call it, instead of surviving and being in survival mode, to get to thriving.
Yeah.
So survive to thrive.
Yeah.
So because a lot of our small businesses are always in survival mode, and it's trying to get them out of that mentality so that they can actually thrive instead of just surviving.
I always tell my staff outflow equals inflow.
Yeah.
You know, that's why one reason I do these radio shows. Well, besides I like doing it, but it's the only way for me to reach people. You know, and if I have something that I really believe in and I want to get it in people's hands, I've got to be out there talking about it.
Right. And maybe not the people that we're used to, you know, reaching out to, because you don't know who you're going to scoop up when you're on a radio station.
Right.
Who's going to tune in and listen.
Yeah, who listens to radio?
Yeah, and don't you love the old commercials?
I love that
They
commercial.
Still use, yeah, I do too. So then I think it just makes it so much better, because it's the same way when, we advertise on Facebook, or you advertise in the Sentinel. There's certain specific readers that see it all the time.
Yeah.
With radio, you don't know who's tuning in, so you have an opportunity to reach audiences that maybe you wouldn't normally reach.
And each different host has their own listeners.
Yeah.
Although
absolutely.
I know, like me and many people, they tap KSCO on all day long.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I'm the same way too.
Yeah, me
I keep
too.
it on in my car.
Yeah.
So when I'm running from meeting to meeting to meeting, it's always in my
Yeah,
car.
I love it.
I'm always listening to Charlie and
For all of
Michael.
you out there, KSCO.com if you're not local, but KSCO 1080 AM, 104.1 FM, the most amazing independent station there is. One of the only ones left, so that's why we're here.
Welcome back. You're listening to Think Local First Radio. I'm Barbara Mason, the Economic Development Coordinator for the County of Santa Cruz, and with us today we have Dr. McCollum, who owns McCollum Family Chiropractic in Capitola. And we've been talking about his journey, about becoming a business owner, about finding his passion, and he's been amazing at sharing his story with us. And I know that one of the things that I appreciate is it's always a learning experience when you get to your office event and to listen to your radio program. We're always learning about the human body, and I think a lot of preconceived notions that we get growing up with traditional medicine, and then understanding the difference with chiropractic and looking at something that's more holistic for us, because you can't find answers all in one place. You do have to do your research and do look in different venues to try and find answers for yourself. And so I know that you are going to be you're going to talk about this in the next hour because it's his turn next, but you're going to have an intermittent fasting group come up here.
Yeah, I get, intermittent fasting and ketosis, or the keto diet, were the two largest words searched for on Google in health last year. So my patients are asking about it a lot. I know a lot of people are trying it themselves and having trouble or failing, and there's reasons why. I mean, sometimes there's toxins. Well, we're all filled with tons of toxins, and you can actually make yourself sick. You can fail at it. And the problem with it, it's so amazing. Most of the great minds of all times have said, fasting is what you do when you're sick. From Socrates to Hippocrates to even Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Edison, they all talk about fasting and not too much medicine. So Tuesday night at the the Best Western in Seacliff, I'll be doing a workshop on fasting, and it's from 7 to 8, and we're going to be rolling out a lot of information, answering people's questions on it. But I've been studying this with Dr. Jason Fung, who is probably the foremost author and scientist in intermittent fasting, or fasting in general. He's a nephrologist, which is a kidney doctor. He wrote the Obesity Code and the Complete Guide to Fasting. So we'll be implementing a lot of his information, as well as Dr. Daniel Pompa, who's like the cellular healing guy, guru of the world. And he's a guy that I work with, and about 40 of us meet once a week on Zoom, and we throw cases around and we learn from them. So I'm there. I'm so excited about getting the people to fast, because fasting can change your health dramatically if you do it right and if you have guidelines. And so I don't want people to miss that. And it's $15. And you can call my office, 831-459-9990, and leave a message, or you can text "Start Fasting," all one word, "Start Fasting," to 474747. So text "Start Fasting" to 474747. And if you missed all that, look in the Sentinel tomorrow. There'll be an advertisement that will tell you that. And I'd love to have you come and see what we can do to help you.
Yeah, I know. I signed up, and I'm
good.
personally really looking forward to hearing everything, because like I said, life is a journey, and you still have to learn about everything, and so I'm looking forward to going. So,
Yeah, good. Well,
absolutely.
It'll
So
be fun.
one of the things too, I think a lot of people think that there's, maybe just that they don't understand the connection between the spine and health.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to touch briefly on, chiropractic care, really looks at the spine and all the nerves and how all the nerves work together in your body? And I'm probably not going to frame that well, but why don't you talk a little bit about that, because I found it to be very, very interesting.
Well, you did very well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's no doubt about it that every single organ and cell in your body is controlled by the nervous system. The nerves come out of your brain, go down the center of your spine, and they exit between every two nerve, and they go to every cell and organ. You have 72 trillion cells. They all have nerves telling them what to do. The biggest mistake out there is to think that chiropractic is for back pain or neck pain. That is usually really easy for us to fix if people don't wait too long and get so much decay in their joints that we can't really help them. But the other thing is stomach problem. I can't tell you how many kids come in with stomach problems. And, we adjust their mid-back where the nerve goes to their stomach and they get well. I mean, if you go to my YouTube channel, McCollum Family Chiropractic, there's, kids on there and mothers saying, geez, we tried everything and now they're doing fine. And, if you have digestive problems, a lot of people think that going to the bathroom 2 to 3 times a week is normal. It is normal, it's just not healthy. You should be going 2 to 3 times a day. And the nerves in your low back, if you have low back pain, sciatica, pain down your leg, and if you have bladder issues or constipation, diarrhea, it's more than likely a very large component of that is the nerves. So you deserve to be healthy, you deserve to get checked. So I would not discount it. It's amazing what we handle with chiropractic: headaches, digestive problems. Really, to be honest though, chiropractic only does one thing. We look for nerve interference and we remove it and let the body do what it does, and that's heal itself. If we can actually keep the nervous system communicating, the body will do its job. So chiropractic doesn't heal anybody. We just allow the body to do what it knows how to do better than us.
Which to me is just amazing.
Yeah.
And then I think the interface of doing the intermittent fasting and discussion of stem cells and letting your body create its own stem cells again, I found that to be very, very interesting. And then there was, I'm not going to remember the name, but somebody who won.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Yoshinori Asumi, I'll be talking about him. He won the Nobel Prize 2016 for medicine and physiology. So that's a pretty distinguished award. And 2016, and it's for a term called autophagy, autophagy, or that just means self-eating. What he discovered is when you fast, your body starts to break down the weak, tired cells in your body. So it will break down the weak stomach cells, gut cells, heart cells, muscle cells, and even kind of, as importantly, the bugs in our gut, the microbiome that actually digest our food and create our health. These bugs that we've been trying to poison for years actually are things that keep us alive. Without the bugs in our gut, we wouldn't be here. But when you starve down the body correctly, and that's what we're going to be teaching on Tuesday night, the body will break down the weaker cells, only the strong survive. It takes all of that, what they've discovered, and also another guy named Dr. Walter Longo, who is works with USC, has discovered that after 30 hours of fasting and the autophagy occurring, stem cells start to come out in abundance. Stem cells are the cells that can become anything in your body. It can become a new heart cell, finger cell, kidney cell, whatever. You can go pay $10,000 to $20,000 to get them injected into your body. They don't. We're not taking them from other children or whatever. Your body knows how to make its own. The thing is, the older we get, your body slows down in making them. That's why it takes us longer to heal. But by going through intermittent fasting, changing your diet, some ancient healing strategies that we'll be talking about, you can actually start to get your body to create more stem cells, and quite in abundance. And what we see after about a month of certain types of fasting, your muscle mass grows. So you'd think, what, I can stop eating and I'll grow more muscle? Yeah, science proves it. So it's fascinating. And The mental clarity from fasting is unbelievable. The brain loves to burn these things called ketones, which are fat. Fat's just stored energy. It's just sitting there, and it's like a stack of wood out in your garage that you're not going to burn all winter. You're going to use the PG&E and burn gas or electricity when you got all this stored firewood. It's free. So most of us have so much stored energy on our body that if we would just use that. And the cool thing about fasting, it doesn't cost anything. It's free. You don't have to go shopping. You don't have to clean up after yourself. There's so many advantages. It's just, it's amazing. A lot of chronic diseases turn around with it too.
Well, I would imagine though that when you fast and the breakdown of the weaker cells, since we do carry toxics and fat primarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens with the toxics getting released?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one of the things where people run into trouble. I have a friend that actually thought she could do this herself and decided to go to Mexico and tried to do a 6-day water fast, and she called one of my friends, said her skin was on fire, and she should have never done this. So, because of all the fats, people think, oh, I can do this myself. You really, some very healthy people can get away with it, but why would you want to? If you're really looking at improving your health, do it right. As some people just want to do this to lose weight. Some people have chronic inflammation and pain. Some people have, all these other conditions that your body knows what to do if you take the toxins away, get the nerves working right, and keep the mental stress at a minimum, then your body's going to do well.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I just have to say, I'm going to be an eager student to learn from you again. So, because he offered a back health little workshop at his office last week that I attended, and it was full plus it was flowing over, and that was very interesting as well. Just like the understanding of how we sleep, the body positions that we do when we sleep, and there's a right way and a wrong way. And I thought, wow, that was great to me. Those were epiphanies that, as a side sleeper, I did exactly what you said to do when I was pregnant. Mm-hmm. But as I've gotten older, I didn't do it that way anymore. And maybe you could explain to folks about, sleeping on your back and sleeping on your side, and about sleeping on your stomach.
Yeah, no problem. The interesting thing is we spend 1/3 of our life asleep. And I told the story about that 91-year-old woman who walked in my office one day with terrible sciatica. And I'll make the story real short. I started talking to her about the way she slept, and she just almost jumped down my throat and said, I'm not going to change anything. I've been doing this for 91 years this way. And then I explained how her spine being twisted and torqued into a corkscrew when she sleeps could potentially, cause some of the problems she's having, and that she'd spent 30 years sleeping of her 91, and she just started laughing, and she says, I've been asleep longer than your staff's been alive. And all of a sudden, this kind of grumpy lady became one of my favorite patients, and we spent many years together. She lived to be about 103, and I got the privilege of adjusting her all those years. But yeah, so when you sleep on your back, that's really the best way, with a pillow under your knees. That will take the pressure off the sciatic nerve in your back, and it relaxes the low back. Pillows should be under your neck, not bolstering your head up. Most people's neck curve goes the wrong way, and that causes all kinds of shock on the body when you're upright, which most of us are most of the time. So that's the best way to sleep. And then on your side, if you put a pillow between your knees, and I recommend the body pillows that you can get, they're about 4 feet long, and you put that between your knees, and it stops that leg from going all the way down to the mattress and prying open the joint, what's called the sacroiliac joint, on the upside of your back. If you're lying on your right side, your left SI joint or sacroiliac joint is going to be sprained all night. It's like falling asleep with your arm hanging off a couch. You wake up and you go, oh my gosh, it's so stiff. That's what you do night after night after night. You sleep wrong. And so a lot of times people, they just come in and go, well, I didn't do anything different, but now my shoulder hurts. And then I find out they've been sleeping on their shoulder for 50 years the wrong way. And they go, I just woke up one morning and it hasn't gotten better. So, there's so many tips, and just, it's like spinal care, things that you can do to keep your your spine healthy. But let me just say, symptoms are there to let you know something else is wrong. If symptoms aren't going away, there's something else wrong. You need to really get to the bottom of it, not just keep covering it up with whatever you might use to cover it up.
Yeah, and I think that was why I ended up at your place, was because I still had symptoms and no one could ever explain to me what was going on until I got to your place and you were like, oh, this is what's happening and this is what we need to do. And I was all like, finally, someone with an answer. Where, you know, and it's just frustrating when you're, I'm in my 50s, but it's frustrating when you're in your 50s and you feel like you're in your 70s, or what I can imagine being in my 70s, where now like the 70s is the new 50s, I think, but because people are much more healthy. But when you start in your 50s not being able to walk long distances, that's a problem. I have teenage boys and that's not fun. So, and I kept on having all these symptoms and no one could answer for me what was wrong. And so I'm so glad you're here and in business here for all of us. And
well, thank you so much for having me on, and I'm very honored to be able to help you. You know, and I treat infants, right away. I mean, that birth trauma, I said that. It's not a trauma, it's an experience. They've made it a trauma, a birth trauma. It might be kind of forceful.
Yeah.
But it's life. That's how life begins. And oftentimes the upper neck is out of place, or the mid-back, and these kids can't talk, but they squirm. And I wish I had time to tell you the story of the one little gal that came in. She was 6 weeks old. She was 12 weeks premature. So I'd seen her when she was still 6 weeks premature. And mother brought her in. She was about the size of a peanut, and she was just jerking, and you could tell she was in so much pain. And actually I told the mother I may be able to help, and I found the bone right up below her neck, right up to the base of her neck. And I just basically touched it, and the baby fell asleep in the mom's arms, and she was blown away. The baby hadn't slept since it was born. And that is amazing. And, there's sometimes it's not immediate. There's a lot of problems that people come in with that have gone undiagnosed, or incorrectly treated, and I can't help everybody. I wish I could, but I'll sure let them know if I can, if I think I can, or if I think I can't. I'll try to find somebody that would be better for them if I don't think I can help them.
Well, I think it's just amazing, and so I'm so thankful that you came on the show today. And so if you're interested, Dr. McCollum is going to have the next hour, and maybe you want to preview a couple of things that you're going to talk about.
Sure, I'm going to be talking about, and I usually come and shoot from the hip, but I am going to be talking quite a bit about the fasting and some of the science that's out there, the research, what you can expect if you come to the workshop. And I might start talking about generational toxicity, which is really interesting.
I found that interesting too. I had no idea. So, well, thank you for being with us today. It's been a beautiful day today here in Santa Cruz. Thanks for joining us. Remember, when you shop local, your money stays here in the local community. Again, thanks again, and we'll see you next Saturday.
Thank you.